Hey guys, it's Nick with Program Practical. Coming today with a video on an update for the Webfont-select project that we recently went over. I've added a few things since then, and we need to add another thing in for the production project that this is currently being used on. Since we last did the video, let me see if I can get my notes here. Let's see, I can't remember exactly where the last video left off at, but we had done things like we bring this over. Let's see, we enabled load all fonts. I believe we had that in there. We did have an issue with loading all fonts that were too big, so we added in some looping to take care of that. Oh, one of the things I know for sure we didn't have in there, we added the ability when you're typing in a font you want, it automatically selects the first font in the list. And then if you hit enter, it'll actually completely select the font. I would like to come back to the project eventually and add in arrow toggles so you can actually move the selection up and down. But as of right now, it'll just be easier not to do that. There's a lot of implementation questions to that, and it's not needed for the project what we're doing right now. And let's see, what else did we do? So we added the selection while typing. We did change the trigger around. It was triggering the callback before it applied all the font URL stuff, so that was causing problems on the callbacks. So that was just some reordering of one of the functions, and we changed the font URL to be updated. Right, so the font URL now updates to the highlighted word regardless. Now, one of the problems we're running into with the project is if you type in a if you type in a font that's not in the list, by default, what it's doing, it's whatever the last known font was, it's keeping that in the font list, and that's not working very well for us, mostly because it seems random to the user. Like, why did this font get selected? Because they weren't paying attention to the font, as they were typing in, they weren't paying attention to the fonts on the screen. So what we want to do to fix this is add in the ability to specify a default font if one is not found, and then if a user selects that font, to make sure we if they type in a font that goes outside the bounds, that we're actually returning the default font, at least its URL, to the list. That way, if that does trigger, then we know. I would also like to add in some kind of a variable, just so the callback method can be made aware. That way, if you want to, on your end, alert the user in some way, whether that be alert message, a flash box, or something like that, you can tell them, this font wasn't found, we used the default one instead. Something just to make their lives a little easier. So that's what we're going to give a shot today, and so we will get on that. Let me get our screen up here, and make sure we got all lined up. There we go. Alright, so we got our Webfont-select package up here, and move that out a little bit. There we go. And it goes down to here. That's good. Alright. So I have updated the README to include all the new changes. And one of the new things we added in here was was it? No, it wasn't that one. Select font by name. No, that was false. Create font objects. Yeah, doesn't matter. You can check the get logs to see what was going on there. So let's grab this over here. back to this. And we'll give this a shot. All right. So what we're wanting to do is essentially have like an option in here that we would call default font name, and have it set to something like something like that. And that's essentially what we're wanting, just like a little variable we can pass in. We can hand it a font name, and then the project use that if it's going through the list and it doesn't find the font, that it would use this instead. So I'm gonna actually copy this out real quick, and we're gonna jump over to our index where we have our fonts for this. Paste this in here, and yeah, I'll leave that. I'll leave that. We'll save that. All right. We'll get a web browser opened up to that. Let's see. Here we go. There that is. All right, so by default, as we're typing in the font, what we would like, if I decide to go crazy, at this point it's going to keep the, at that point it's going to select the default font, at least put it in the URL for this thing. How we have our web font URL, you'll see that updates, and then if I go crazy, then this font URL gets set to the default font URL. Not necessarily this. I would like to still give the user the ability to correct that, but just something we can control like that. So where we'll do that is we'll go into where the user types in the font, and then we update it for that, which I believe is this one right here. Search the font list. Now, do we want, that's a good UX question, do we want the drop down to show the default font? Yeah, so that's a good question. So do we want this to still show a drop down that has that default font? I feel like at that point, if you did that though, you'd kind of have to add a message like this is the default. So that's probably not good. So select font by name. We might be able to do it in there. Let's see. Let me check the select font by name function right here. All right. Sorry, getting distracted. All right. Let's say load fonts, font type. We have that font URL. If validation font value is not font. Let me try this real quick. We're just going to do a console log of the font URL we're being handed. And we're just going to see what that does in the console. So we see we have that one going, and then if I go boop, 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 nothing's coming through. And that's because it doesn't call, because the font name, I have another console log in here I'm not supposed to. Or is that my Haml? Yeah, I got a console log there. We can get rid of that. We don't need that firing off. Okay, so if value is not font name, highlight only. All right. So we got fonts and style, font name, element value does not, if element value does not equal font name. So that's select font. So this is definitely the element we need updated. I'm interested on why this calls like that. Let's just see what this is actually putting up. I'm not sure what element we have selected there. Let's see. Alright, delete that. And then we'll type in see, we're not even getting that far. Select font by name. Highlight only. Here we go. Match length. Select font list item. Okay, here it is. So we look for the fonts. We check the length. If the link is accurate, then we call this. Otherwise, we return false. Yep. Interesting. Well, we could always do an else here, because essentially what's happening here is we're checking this console log match. Whoop, that's that was legal, not length. All right, and we'll jump back into here. Whoop, not that, this one. And there goes the match. There's no match. So that means we hit this. So what we could do, we're not actually looking to necessarily select anything out of the list. All we're trying to do is update the input element. We're trying to update the inputs element, the font URL in particular, and then we probably need to do a trigger. I don't know if we want to do that under the same trigger, if we want to introduce a new trigger for this. That is a interesting question. Okay. Let me jump back into this. It's working. All right. So what we'll probably want to do is check in here. We'll do an else. And we can actually put that return false in here too. And we'll want to update it. Do we have an element from here? We should. That's calling a this. So that's calling this element. What do I have available to me? So the font URL comes out of the list data. So we'll need to generate what kind of we should have a generate URL function, right? Load fonts. Yes, generate font URL. So we pass in the font options, the font type, and the font name. Font options, font type, jump into here. That's actually a good question. What do I have that? Font options, font type, Google, URL generation space. So join operations, URL generation, space character, font type. Oh, that's right, because it's technically doing this through here. So yeah, it would still need to know. It would need to know what family or what fonts, what key we're coming out of, right? So it wouldn't be just enough to have this. You would need to do like a double array of like that. What we could do would be make that an option, and then we'll say name equals this. We'll give it a type of Google, like that. Save that. I'm gonna copy this too for our default stuff, because we'll need that. We'll need the font options. We'll need access to that. I wonder how we get. How do I get control of the font options? Oh, that'd just be through options font, right? Options font, use fonts. I'll have to play with that. I haven't touched that code in a bit. So we got that now. We have this generate fonts. Oh wait, no. Generate font URL. So we just need the options, the type, and the name. That's actually a really good question. If I can access this dot options, which I might not be because of how it's being recalled. Yeah, I might not be able to, but let's give this a shot. So how about I just do a console log options element. Is there anything else we need to test? I don't think so for right now. Let's just call these real quick and just see what we get. And now we'll call on the fail. So I'll need the shouldn't have called that early. IT. There we go. Yeah. So we got the font object. I have the default font's name. Now let's try to remember what this is real quick. So if I tried to call one of these, like it would equal that, but if I did that, it would be an undefined. So that's all we have to test for. So we're gonna check. Let's see. Unless options, what was it? Default font name. Let's grab it out of there. Make life easy. Default font name. Unless this does not equal undefined, then we'll jump into here. Now remind me later. I will say with this new version of CodeKit, updates have been coming out pretty quick. It's quite nice. Alright. So we're going to update the default fonts option. So if it's not equal undefined, so we do in fact have one, we need to send to the fonts option, which I believe is just the drill down of here. So we'll want to call, let's see, we have element. Trigger change. I guess we will do that for right now. We will do this generate font URL, which will take a few options. One of them being options. Actually, I can do that, can I? Let's do that for now. And let's see, we had fonts. That does end in an S. And then we had our default font name, which has a name and a type. And if I remember correctly, it is a type and then the name. So options, default font name, type, and then I'm just gonna copy that, change that to name, and we're gonna save that. And we're gonna give that a shot. Alright, we're gonna remove these consoles so I don't forget. We're not messing with that code down there anyways. Gotta get rid of that because it's unneeded now. And then I will console log the element though. The element. That and restart. Alright, and we'll get rid of this and we'll just type in SIT. And we should have gotten a console log, right? Let's see. Inspect this element. Actually, I guess that's not a good font to try on since we do have that. So AL. And if I do a T, TT, TT, nope, see, it's not updating. Gotta figure out what's going on here. I'm gonna do a quick console log, and then I'm actually gonna tell it to generate this for me. We'll see what it does. Actually, it might be an issue because it's nested, but I'm not getting any kind of errors, so it kind of throws me off. So let's copy and paste that up there. Reload this. All right, checking some console stuff. SAD, because I'm sad the code's not running. Oh, that's horrible. Let's see. And get a quick phone call, so I'll be right back. All right, figuring out some late night dinner plans. So I'm gonna wrap this up here soon. I'm gonna grab some dinner, and then I will be back to continue streaming. But for right now, let's see if we can knock this out. We'll do some testing afterwards. So, where are we at on this? So we're sad because it's not running. That is right. So the question is why? I seem to have scrolled my way away. Here we are. So these, so it says unless, so log, so default font name, that's right. All right, we're gonna save that. I could be accessing it improperly though. Let's give it a shot. So see that, so unless, oh wait, I'm doing a double negative here. So unless this is undefined, yeesh, come on, Nick. Gotta be careful with those double negatives. So now, bam. Okay, so let's see if I do P, or I guess a Y instead. I believe that was new. Bam. Bam. Yeah, that's definitely new. All right, looks like we are in fact generating that and returning it. So we'll do a quick check, get rid of all this console nonsense. Hang on. All right, and we'll do some testing over here. So we get this information back, and is there anything I really want on it? So that's why I don't think change is a good one. I feel like we should like add an update, like maybe trigger default, and then we'll have a way to know like when the default happens. Because as of right now, there's no real way to know this was from the default. We just know we're just triggering a change for no reason, really. That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head right now what would be a good replacement for that. However, through our testing, we do know now that, let's see, we inspect this bad boy. We have droid sans from the top. If I type in that, we'll get that. And then as soon as I mess up the name, we get the default URL. So that is awesome, and working the way we want. I wonder, what about if we just pass a variable into trigger, like pass in a variable just saying, you know, that we use the default font URL instead of, you know, because it was a change. I just because the main reason why, the way I'm thinking about, at least in the use case in the production that we have now, I still need to call trigger or trigger change. That change updates certain things, even though nothing's physically being changed on the screen, all that information is staying the same. I still have to update URL stuff on my app side of things. So on that note, let's see. Okay, well, let's see, my wife is here, so anyways, so yeah, thanks for watching. Oh yeah, I voted sticker on my very horrible Walmart shirt that I bought a long time ago. Anyways, so there we go. We added at least a default font option in here and tested it a little. I still want to somehow pass over information through the trigger or some other means like that to let the app know, hey, this was the default font, not a normal font was found. So if you're using this library, you can update it somehow. I think the proper way is doing a secondary trigger, not like some data passed into the trigger. But I don't know. We'll give it a shot. I'll look up some things while I'm eating dinner, and I'll come back on a live stream as soon as I'm ready to wrap this up, because I got to get this code pushed up to work tonight. So yeah, anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in a bit.